Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for being here at our Countdown to College event. We're happy to have you here. I'd like to introduce Matthew. He is going to be talking with us today about the UCAS system and the UK University of Dundee specifically. So thank you, Matthew, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, brilliant. Hello, guys. It's very late here in the UK, so if you see me yawn during the presentation, it's not that your company is boring me. It's just that I would really like to have been in bed several hours ago, but really privileged to be here. Hope you can understand my accent okay. I'm very conscious whenever I speak to an international audience that I've got a very thick Scottish accent. But if at any time you're struggling to understand what I'm saying, please post a message into the chat or just unmute yourself and tell me that you don't understand me, and I'll do my best to speak some version of the King's English. But we're just going to get started. This is going to be a presentation where I talk you through the differences between the UK and US application systems and tell you a little bit more about UCAS, which is like the UK application system that most universities here in the UK use. And then for 5 minutes at the end, I'm going to do a shameless bit of self promotion and try and convince you that the University of Dundee, which is the university that I work for, a university on the east coast of Scotland, that we are the greatest university since sliced bread. You'd be mad to study at any other university. But hopefully you'll walk away with a bit of information, a bit of knowledge, and I'm hoping that there will be time for Q&A. I will pause every so often and just ask if anyone has any questions. It is usually good if I get some questions, guys. Like otherwise, I just feel like I'm machine gunning you with information for half an hour, and none of us get the most out of the session. But I will just get started, and I will, like I say, pause every so often if anyone does have any questions. So the first thing I want to talk about is the differences between the school or between the university slash college system in the US versus the UK. So in the US, entry into college is much more complicated. They look at numerous different factors, extracurriculars. There's a whole host of criteria that elite schools will use to try and work out who they want to admit. In the UK, it's much more straightforward. We are much more strictly academic focused. Now, for competitive programs and for high tariff universities, extracurriculars are still great. They give a student an edge, but we are primarily focused first and foremost on grades, and anything over and above strong grades is seen as a little bit of a bonus. But the first thing to know if you're applying to a UK school, academics is what we look at. Now, you guys have a wonderful kind of like school spirit and college cheer system over here in the States. I love it. I think it's great. But that sort of culture doesn't exist in the same way at UK schools and UK colleges. For example, you have a wonderful sporting tradition here in the States, which is tremendous. I think that's wonderful. We have a very proud sporting tradition of our own in the UK, and the sport at UK universities is a very high standard. But I don't think any UK university has a stadium for tens of thousands of people. The kind of Friday night lights, cheerleaders, all singing, all dancing, sports culture, for example, that you have here in the States, college football, that sort of thing, it doesn't really translate the same to the UK. We're much more understated. There's a lot of fun to be had on UK campuses, but students have generally got to find that fun and kind of make it for themselves. It doesn't not the same level of enthusiasm as some American schools and colleges will have. Now, another important distinction is that over here in the US, most of you guys will use Common App to apply. We'll talk more about Common App in a second, but effectively the UK equivalent of Common App is a system called UCAS, UCAS. Okay. Another difference in the US and the UK, it's very common for students in the US, as I understand it, to be in dormitories. So they'll have a room at college where they'll have multiple roommates or at least one other roommate, and the college will provide meals for them. In the UK, I do not know of a single university that has dorms. Usually, all students will receive their own room, which is great. They get a bit more privacy and a bit more space. And meal plans, where the university would provide food for a student, those are very rare in the UK. Very few universities can offer that. But on the upside, students typically get their own room if they choose to live in student accommodation. Oh, there's loads of people joining now. This is great. Hello, everyone. If you just joined us, I'm Matthew. Now, in the US, students also typically do a 4 year degree. In the UK, in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, so there are four nations that make up the UK. There's Northern Ireland, Wales, England, and then the greatest nation of all time, other than the US, Scotland. We make up the best part of the UK. At England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, they complete 3 year undergraduate degrees, which are a bit more focused than what you guys are used to here in the US. In Scotland, we actually do a 4-year degree as well, and our degree is better and I think more exciting in ways that I'll come on to explain in a few slides' time. But for the moment, all you need to know, typically in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, 3-year degree versus a 4-year degree here in the States. And Scotland is a little bit different, and I'll come on to talk about why we're the best in a second or two. Again, hello to everyone who's just joined us. I'm Matthew. I work for the University of Dundee, and we're chatting about coming to study in the UK and ultimately coming to study in Scotland, hopefully at my university, the University of Dundee, but general stuff just now. Now, I think I get asked about a lot from families in the US is the level of safety in the UK. I don't know why I'm asked this. More recently, I've noticed that as certain politicians have sought to portray the UK in a particular way, I get asked about it more and more. The reality of the situation is the UK is an incredibly safe country. We are one of the safest in the world. Violent crime is almost unheard of. Regardless what you may have read or seen, the facts kind of speak for themselves. That in the Global Peace Index, the UK is in the top 30 countries in terms of safety in the world, which is really, really excellent. Makes a really good safe study environment for students. And for context, the US is 128th in the Peace Index, according to the 2025 study in the Global Peace Index they conduct. Now, obviously, this is not foolproof data. I'm sure there are flaws in the methodology used by the Global Peace Index, but as a general rule of thumb, the UK is an incredibly safe place to live, work, and study. And by these metrics, it's actually quite a bit safer than most places in the US. But if you do have any concerns about your son, daughter, or maybe yourself coming to study overseas, the UK is a very welcoming culture. We have very low rates of crime, especially violent crime is very low. It's an excellent place that's very nurturing and supportive to kind of build your student experience. Now, if you apply to UK colleges and universities, the system that we use is something called UCAS. So I've said it before, but I'll say it again for those who have maybe just joined. UCAS. UCAS, it is effectively the UK's equivalent of Common App. Now, I put on some key deadlines there. Typically, UCAS app opens for applications in the September of each year before a student would apply for the following year. So, for example, UCAS will open in September 2026 for candidates who want to start university in the UK in September 2027. There is what's called the early UCAS deadline. So if you want to apply to Oxbridge, that is to say Oxford and or Cambridge, I say and or, I think you are limited to applying to either Oxford or Cambridge. I don't think you can apply for both. But again, speak to those universities if you've got a very, very bright young person who wants to go to Oxford. And also, if you want to apply for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine, there is an early application deadline of around the 16th of October. And again, if you're applying for 2027 entry, that would be the 16th of October 2026 if you wanted to start studying for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine in 2027. Now, for all other courses at all other universities, the most important deadline is that their UCAS application has to be completed and submitted by the 31st of January 2026 if they want to start in September 2027. All this information is on the UCAS website. It's not behind a paywall. You can go on and there's helpful guides and tips. There's loads of information there. And I'm pretty certain that the school will be able to support your son, daughter, your child, or yourself through that application process. They will definitely have used UCAS before. If the school has set internal deadlines that they need to see a list of schools that you want to apply for, or you need to declare to the school that you're going to apply to the UK, and they set a deadline for that, we obviously recommend that people definitely comply with that deadline and make sure that the lovely college counsellors that you've got there in Mountain View, that they know what you intend to do and that they can support you best. Now, we recommend that students apply well in advance of that 31st of January deadline, just so they have enough time, so they can consider their application and do a good job. However, I know that you guys here in the US have a sort of early application system where students are incentivized to apply early and it gives them some kind of advantage in the application process. That is not the case in the UK. We encourage students to apply early because it means they might hear back slightly earlier, but we don't lower grades for early applicants. We don't offer typically financial incentives for early applications. We just advise students apply earlier for their own peace of mind and so they've got adequate time to do a good job on the application. Now, what does the UCAS application actually look like? It's pretty straightforward. If you've done any kind of online form filling in, it will be very familiar. UCAS requests a student makes a login details. We ask for where they live, their age, their name, where they study, and then UCAS presents them with what are called five choices. So on UCAS, a student can apply up to five different courses at up to five different universities in the UK. Now, you might wonder if there are about 180 different schools or colleges or universities in the UK. Why limit them to five? I know that Common App, for example, allows you to use many, many more. The number five is quite arbitrary, but that is the way UCAS structures itself. They get five choices that can be, if they like, five choices at one university, or it can be three choices at one university and two at another university, or five completely separate courses at five completely different universities. It is entirely up to the student and where they think they're best suited to apply. We would always caution, please don't apply to five courses at one university, just in case that university is struck by an asteroid and completely wiped out, and then that application has been largely wasted because that university doesn't exist. And we would always say that students try to make realistic choices. So there will be a version of me for every university in the United Kingdom. Those people will not be as tall or as good looking as I am, of course. But if you seek them out, they can give you a realistic idea of what that university looks for their physics course, for their geography course, and you can make a judgment on them whether or not your student, your son, your daughter, your child, your ward, whoever it is that you're looking after, or whoever you're gathering information for tonight, if the course offered by that university is a good fit for them. There we are. With a little bit of information on employment details, if a student has had a part-time job, UCAS are only really interested in paid work. This is not a particularly important part of the application. We just gather it for kind of information purposes. There is a personal statement, which is roughly equivalent to the college essay that some universities ask for here in the US. We will talk more about the personal statement in just a moment or two. And finally, there is a reference which is supplied by the college counsellor at the student's high school. In that reference, the college counsellor should list anything like extenuating circumstances. By that, we mean if a student has been bereaved or if they have been unwell, if they have suffered some kind of difficulty or setback in their education, then the reference from the college counsellor should detail that and we can try to take that into account. Also, it's doubly important that the student engages and has an open and frank conversation with the college counsellor because that reference also refers to their performance as a student. Are they punctual? Do they submit assignments on time? Does the counsellor think that they are fundamentally a good fit for the course they've applied for, etc. So again, if your son and or daughter, your ward, whoever it is that you're here on behalf for, or if it's you yourself, make sure that if the school is giving you information and asking you to engage with you, that you do that as much as possible because they write this lovely reference for you that accompanies your application. Now, a certain advantage to the UCAS system over Common App is that I know that many universities in the US charge quite high application fees on Common App. UCAS charges about $40, depending on the exchange rate at the time. And that covers you for the application that goes out to five different potential universities. So it's a bit more economical than applying on Common App or applying directly to some universities. But $40 for five applications, pretty economically viable, pretty reasonable, I would say. Something that I should note, by the way, guys, so UCAS, the organization that I've been referring to and which we'll use to apply, it's worth noting that they are not part of any UK university. They are an administrative body that's set separate to us. So we as universities cannot control what goes on their website. If you suffer any difficulty, you can't get the little drop-down menus to work properly, or you're confused, speak to UCAS in the first instance, and they can usually help you. I have some pretty strong feelings about UCAS that I'm not going to share because I'm technically working at the moment. But even I am forced to admit that their customer service is excellent. If you email them, if you are in the right time zone and you give them a phone, then they will definitely be able to help. Oh, message in the chat. I wonder if this is a question. Oh, does graduate school application use UCAS? Generally, no, Lydia. So, excellent question. If you were applying for a postgraduate program, so that would be for someone who's already got an undergraduate degree and wants to come and do, say, a master's degree, typically a student would not use UCAS. They would usually apply directly to the university they were interested in. I'll talk a little bit more about direct application in a bit.
Thank
I
you.
will pause. Oh, no, no worries, Lydia. Thank you. I didn't know you guys can talk to me. That's great. Does anyone have any other questions at this point, guys? You can either post them into the chat, or please feel free, if my Scottish accent hasn't frightened you, you're allowed to unmute yourself. You can talk to me directly if you would like to. But any questions at this stage? Okay, the way the tumbleweed has rolled there, I'm going to assume that either I've explained everything brilliantly, or maybe the Scottish accent really is quite intimidating and frightening, and I've frightened you all into silence. Either way, easy job for me. I'm going to move on. Right. Uh, as I've said already, UCAS provides five choices. These can be a combination of different courses at different universities in any combination that the student likes. It is important to note that the UCAS personal statement, the equivalent of the college essay that goes along with a student's application, they only write one personal statement, one college essay, and that goes out to all five of their UCAS choices. Now, there are some things to keep in mind there. If a student opened their college application essay, their personal statement with the words, ever since I was a little boy or a little girl, I have wanted to study at the University of Oxford, and we at the University of Dundee get that letter, we're going to laugh as we set it on fire and reject the application. Now, we wouldn't be that severe, but clearly it doesn't leave a great impression if a student mentions another university by name in their personal statement. Likewise, if a student writes a personal statement that is all about physics and they've actually applied for, say, English literature, it doesn't seem that they're very committed to our course. So we would ask that students try to be as specific as they possible about the subject they've applied for without name dropping a particular university or a particular school or place that they want to study. Now, the personal statement is quite easy to structure. So, unlike many college essays, which are quite extensive, the personal statement is quite short. It's only 4,000 characters. Very strange metric used. Note, it does not count maximum words, it counts maximum characters. And obviously, 4,000 characters equates to far less than 4,000 words. 4,000 characters for a rough hint, it's about a page of A4 typed on 11-point font. So it's not a huge amount of work at all. And to make things easier, the personal statement on the UCAS application is structured in three sections, and each section pertains to a particular question. The first one, why do you want to study this course or subject? The second, how have your qualifications and studies helped you prepare for this course or subject? And thirdly, what else have you done to prepare outside of formal education, and why are these experiences useful? If students are applying to other universities, even the US or elsewhere, it's likely they'll have to write similar essays. Lots of that material can probably be recycled into the UCAS application. We absolutely caution students against using AI to write their personal statement, not least of all because someone does it every year and it's very easy to spot. AI is not that clever yet. And moreover, if there are 4,000 essays that are submitted and they all look suspiciously similar, UCAS have quite advanced plagiarism software that makes the link and catches them out. So please, please, please try not to allow your students, your sons, daughters, wards, whoever it is that you're looking after, please try to discourage them from using AI to write these essays. The odds are, if they're in a position to be applying to a good university, they're almost definitely clever enough to put in the minimum amount of work required to write this personal statement. Now, there's a minimum character count of 350 words on each, or I think 350 words per section on each of these questions, with a 4,000 character count overall. So students should aim to answer each of the sections equally and respond to the questions in a way that gives us a good impression of them as a student and maximizes their chances of being accepted. My best piece of advice for writing the personal statement, or indeed for any college essay, is that a student should make links between what they have accomplished and the course that they are interested in. So, for example, we get lots of students every year who just list all the amazing things they've done, and we get some really impressive individuals that they're captain of the football team, they're president of the debate club, they've done a summer internship at the Mayo Clinic, they've done some volunteering in sub-Saharan Africa, and whilst they were over there building wells, they toppled a warlord and like they get invited to join the Avengers, and it's all super exciting, but they make no effort to tell us how being captain of the football team makes them a stronger candidate to study geography. They make no effort to tell us why being the high school debate champion makes them a good candidate to come and study English literature. We strongly encourage students not just to list their accomplishments, but to tell us why this thing makes them a good candidate for this program or this course. There we go. Session's being recorded, so you can look at these later, or you can take a picture on your phone just now, guys, if you like. But this is just good general advice for writing the personal statement that goes and accompanies the UCAS application, or indeed any college essay for that matter. I'm not going to go through all of them because we have limited time, and I think it would be really boring. Now, if for whatever reason a student doesn't want to use UCAS, or that all that I've said sounds very confusing, there are many UK universities who are also on the Common App. So you can just add us as a choice on Common App and apply to us. My university, the greatest university in the world, the University of Dundee, we are on the Common App, and currently there is no application fee. You can apply to us for free if you're using the Common App anyway. We encourage you to do so. We're a great university. If I've got time at the end, I'm going to spend 2 minutes shamelessly doing self-promotion, telling you why we're a good university. But many other UK universities will be on Common App. Many of them do not have an application fee. So if you're looking at studying in the UK and your son, daughter, ward, whoever it is that's dear to you, if they're looking at using Common App, you can probably apply to several UK schools for minimal or perhaps no cost. Some universities will also allow for direct application. So if you don't like the look of Common App, if you don't like the look of UCAS, you can just ignore both of them potentially. And some universities in the UK, although not all of us, will allow you to apply to us directly. And that process is also often completely free. So we at the University of Dundee, because we're the best, we allow you to do this. You can apply to us directly. In fact, we're open for applications for September 2026 right now. If there's anyone who feels they want to come and study in Scotland, we would love to have you. Now, some people will get worried that, oh, if I apply to some universities on UCAS and then I apply to a few other universities in the UK on Common App and then I apply to another university in the UK directly, will that hurt my chances? And the answer is no. I cannot think of a situation where if a student applied to us directly, we wouldn't know what other universities they had applied for. Likewise, if a student applied to us on UCAS and had applied to another university directly, there's no way we would know unless the student told us. And even if they told us, we know that students apply to other universities. I can't think of a scenario where it would damage their chances of being accepted. Now, the only thing that might annoy us a little bit is if a student applies to us on UCAS, applies to us directly, and applies to us on Common App, or applies to any two of those things for similar programs, or if a student is rejected on UCAS but then applied directly later, that might annoy us a little bit because it's just wasting our time and confusing our systems, and submitting multiple applications just creates more work for our admissions teams. That's the only reason that I would think of where a student would be penalised. But all of this is to say that American students trying to study in the UK have multiple good application options and multiple good options for study. Brilliant, guys. By my count, I've got 6 minutes to tell you why studying in Scotland and studying at the University of Dundee in particular is the greatest decision that any student could ever make. However, before I give you that really quick info dump and do the shameless self-promotion, is there anything anyone would like to ask me about anything that I've said? I would rather answer your questions than do the self-promotion, I promise. So you can either post into the chat, or if you would like, you can unmute yourself and talk to me. Is there anything that I can do for anyone, or anything that you would like to ask me? Going once, going twice. Oh, you're making it easy for me, guys. Brilliant. Well, I appreciate not everyone will have a family member or will not be interested in studying in Scotland, but I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to let you know what's so great about the country, guys. Obviously, I am Scottish. I'm clearly biased. I think we're the greatest country in the world, and we're a genuinely brilliant option for students who want to come and study from the US and come and study in the UK. Now, the first reason for that is that I think we're the most beautiful country anywhere on earth. So if you go 20 minutes outside of any of Scotland's major cities, you end up in countryside that looks a little bit like that you can see in the picture. If you've got students who are interested in hiking, camping, mountain biking, if they just like being connected to nature, I know you guys have some beautiful natural scenery in California. I think Scotland's got even better mountains, even better coastlines. And if you come and visit us, you'll find out very quickly that it really is a stunning place to live and work and study. Now, I've been making jokes about my accent and about UCAS, but if you take nothing else away from this presentation, I would really like you to absorb this. In Scotland, we do a 4 year undergraduate degree. And in fact, the US 4 year undergraduate system is actually copied from the Scottish degree. We have been using a 4 year undergraduate degree for much longer than the US has existed as a country. You guys are welcome. You can have the system. In return, the US gave us country music, so I guess we can call it more or less even. But what this means is that students get a 4 year undergraduate degree, which is similar in structure to what they are used to here in the US. They get a little bit more flexibility. For most degrees in Scotland, a student will study multiple subjects for their first few years and then specialize in the subject that they're enjoying the most. So, for example, a student might study English literature, philosophy, and psychology for their first 2 years, and then either narrow down just to English, just to psychology, or combine any two of those subjects together. Likewise, if a student gets 10 minutes into their first history lecture and realizes, oh dear goodness, I've made a terrible mistake. There's too many kings called Henry. I can't stand this history nonsense. You can just drop history and take something else like politics or international relations or a language. Most Scottish universities will have this sort of flexible structure, which is about halfway between a liberal arts degree that you guys might be familiar with here, where it's super flexible, and the sort of typical 3 year degree that is offered in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, where students specialise immediately in their chosen subject. Now, one of the huge advantages of this is that in Scotland, we do the 4 year degree, but we don't offer any general ed classes. So we would never, for example, make a physics student do a class on Shakespeare to fulfill a general ed requirement. We would never make an English major do a class on calculus because they're an English major. Why, in goodness name, would they have to do a class on calculus? Students would only study modules which are related to their chosen subject or that they specifically wanted to do. So they get that 4 years, but there's no general ed. And usually, and this is a really big selling point, it is typically vastly cheaper to study in Scotland at most of our universities than it is to remain in California, even with the discount that many students receive for in-state tuition. So you get a similar structure, no general ed, you get to tap into hundreds of years of higher education and expertise, and you can usually get it cheaper than if you remained in the good old US of A. Now, a bit about us, the University of Dundee, and I'm not being rude, guys. I am checking my phone to see how much time we have left together, which maybe you know, to a really interesting point. So, LCD, liquid crystal display. So, that technology was actually created at the University of Dundee. The device that you are likely watching this call on was actually created by us, if it's got an LCD screen. And we lacked, unfortunately, the foresight to patent that technology. But hey ho, it does speak to our scientific excellence. Dundee is quite unique as a university. We actually started off life as a university college of the University of St Andrews. St Andrews are one of the oldest universities anywhere in the English-speaking world, so we can trace our heritage back through them. But then about 50 years ago, we broke off from St Andrews. We gained our independence, unlike the rest of Scotland. But it does mean that the University of Dundee's got a very unique feel in that we're simultaneously very old and very young at the same time. We do very well in the rankings. We're ranked number 1 in Europe for the quality of our life sciences research. 84% of our research is classed as world leading. We're in the top 400-ish universities in the world. We're ranked in the top 26 universities in the UK out of over 160 universities in the Guardian University Guide. And even though we're a small-ish university with about 15,000 students, a quarter of our students are from outside of the UK. So we're very, very cosmopolitan. The city of Dundee is a big selling point. So there's only about 150,000 people who live in Dundee, but we actually have the highest concentration of students per head of capita of any city in the United Kingdom. We don't have any 12-lane highways. We do not have any skyscrapers. So if you've got a student who's looking for a massive metropolis, we're just not it. What we are is a really small, well-situated, cozy, laid-back student city, extremely safe. They can walk everywhere. And at last count, we offer about 150 to 200 different undergraduate degrees. No matter what it is they want to study, we probably offer it. And at the moment, we have an automatic scholarship for US students. If they come and study with us, we give them a $5,000 per year tuition fee discount. All they've got to do is turn up. Oh, and there's about 80 to 100 Americans on campus at any given time. In any year, we have about 10 to 20 American undergraduates who start their studies with us. So there's a really good, strong tradition of US students coming over across the ponds to join us. According to that LCD screen, guys, that is 1:30. It's 1:30 here in the UK, so it's very late. I'm guessing it's 6:30 for you guys, and you might have other lectures and webinars to attend. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you for indulging my 5 minutes at the end where I did the same with the promotion. Honestly, really appreciate it. Vastly appreciate your time, guys. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will stay on the call for a few more minutes just in case anyone wants to stay on and ask me any questions. But it's been a pleasure meeting you all. Hopefully, I'll see some of you in Scotland. Take care.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We appreciate your time. Take care.
Like I said, guys, if you're still with me, or if you maybe got me on in the background while you're doing housework or out for a walk or cooking dinner, whatever it is you're up to, I'll stay on the call for a few more minutes. But if you want to ask me anything, please do post in the chat, or please do unmute yourself and talk to me. If you don't have any questions, please do head off. I'm keen